Who is she? The Duke of Thornemere had not asked such a question in 9 years, and the man beside him nearly dropped his glass. Across the vast, blazing length of the Thornemere ballroom, where 300 candles burned in crystal and the cream of the county turned like swans upon still water, a young woman had just come through the far doors, and the whispers were already rising around her like a tide. Ansel, Duke of Thornemere, did not turn from her. He was a man who never turned from anything, which was half of why they feared him. Feared, relentless, exacting, he had buried a father, a brother, and a betrothed in the space of 3 winters, and he had come out of that black season with a jaw of iron and eyes that missed nothing. He gave chances to no one. He forgave nothing. And in a decade of these tedious, glittering nights, no woman had ever made him ask her name. She stood alone just inside the doors in a gown of pale grey silk that was 3 seasons out of fashion and mended. He could see even from here, at the left shoulder with stitches so fine they were nearly invisible. Her chin was up. That was the thing. All around her the young ladies of the county drew their skirts a half-inch closer, and behind their fans he heard the murmur travel. The marsh girl, of course it is, the poor relation. They only asked her because the numbers were short. Look at that gown, someone ought to have told her. And through all of it the young woman kept her chin exactly, precisely up, as though she had decided long ago that she would not give them the satisfaction of watching her shrink. That, said his cousin Rupert at his elbow, is Miss Selina Marsh. Ward of the Ashfords. You know, the loud ones, Vexford way. A charity case, Thornemere. Her father gambled the whole estate into the river and died of it, and old Ashford took the girl on out of what he calls Christian duty, and everyone else calls the pleasure of having someone to look down upon. Lady Ashford dresses her own daughters in Paris and sends this one down to dinner in the housekeeper's cast-offs. Frightful business. Don't waste a glance. The Duke of Thornemere wasted a glance. He watched Miss Selina Marsh cross to the edge of the room, past a knot of debutantes who fell silent as she came and burst into laughter the instant she had passed. He watched the colour rise in her throat and never once reach her face. He watched her take up a position beside a marble pillar, where the light was poor and the company was non-existent, and where he understood she intended to spend the entire evening being invisible with as much dignity as a person could muster. Her cousin, Rupert went on, warming to it, is the Ashford beauty, Miss Caroline. There, the yellow gown, the diamonds. They mean her for you, Thornemere. Half the mothers in the room mean their daughters for you. It's why you're scowling. I am not scowling. You are always scowling. Ansel did not answer. Miss Caroline Ashford in yellow and diamonds had noticed the direction of his gaze and mistaken it entirely. She was already gliding toward him with the confidence of a girl who has never once been refused anything, her mother beaming 3 steps behind. The Duke felt the familiar iron settle over him. He had been hunted like this 1,000 times. He knew every move of it. Your Grace. Miss Caroline sang to a curtsy exactly deep enough to display the diamonds. How good of you to open Thornemere to us. One hears you so rarely entertain. One feels quite honoured, Miss Ashford. You were looking toward the doors just now. A silvery little laugh. I do hope nothing had displeased you. Some of the guests this season are, well, one cannot always choose one's company, can one? Mama says a hostess must simply endure a certain amount of nobody at the edges of a room. Behind her, her mother's smile did not waver. And Ansel understood that this was a trap laid with some skill, that he was meant to agree, to make the small cruel joke, to be brought into the county's easy contempt for the girl in grey by the pillar, and so be bound a little to the girl in yellow who offered it. It was neatly done. It was the sort of thing that had worked on him before, in the years when he had been too grief-blunted to notice. He noticed now. On the contrary, Miss Ashford said the Duke of Thornemere, and his voice was quiet, which was worse than loud. Those who knew him went still when he was quiet. I find the company at the edges of my room considerably more to my taste than the company pressing at its centre. You will excuse me. He walked away from her before she had finished her curtsy. He crossed the whole length of the ballroom. Afterward, no one in the county could quite agree on the precise moment the music faltered. But it faltered. 300 people watched the Duke of Thornemere, who danced with no one, who had refused every worthy match set before him for 9 years. Walk the entire lit expanse of his own ballroom with his eyes fixed on a single point, and stopped before the poor relation in the mended grey silk beside the pillar in the poor light. Selina Marsh looked up at him. She did not simper and she did not shrink. She looked, if anything, faintly braced, as though she expected some fresh unkindness and had already decided to meet it standing. "Your Grace," she said. Her curtsy was perfect, better, he thought, than the diamonds. "I hope I have not strayed somewhere I ought not. I was told to keep to the edges." "By whom?" Pause. "By everyone, more or less. Is a thing one learns. Then everyone has been wrong." He held out his hand. It was not a request. It was not quite a command. It was something he had not offered a living soul since the winter he stopped believing in mercy. "Dance with me, Miss Marsh." She did not take it at once. He respected her for that. Her eyes, grey like the gown, clear as rain, searched his face with a plain, unfrightened intelligence, looking for the joke in it, the trap, the wager he must surely have made with his friends. He saw her look for it. He saw her, remarkably, not find it. "People will talk," she said quietly. "People are already talking. They have been talking since you came through the door. The only question left," said the Duke of Thornemere, "is what you would like them to say." And Selina Marsh ward Charity, nobody, the girl sent down to dinner in cast-offs, put her mended glove hand into the hand of the most feared man in 3 counties, and let him lead her into the light. He had expected her to be a poor dancer. She was not. She was steady and light. And she followed him as though she had been born to a house this, rather than sent to eat at the foot of another woman's table. And when he turned her beneath the great central chandelier, and the crystal threw its light across her face, he saw that she was not plain at all. They had told her she was plain. He understood, for so long and so cruelly, that she had learned to carry herself as though it were true. It was not true. It had never been true. "You are staring, Your Grace," she said, low as the pattern brought them close. "It is not kind to stare." "I am memorizing," said Ansel, "the faces of everyone in this room who has ever made you keep to the edges. It is a longer list than I anticipated. Do not let me interrupt your dancing." Something moved in her face then, the first crack in the armor, quickly mastered. "You mustn't do this to be gallant. I am not a wounded bird. I do very well. I can see that you do very well. It is precisely why I crossed the room." He turned her again. "Tell me something true, Miss Marsh, and I will believe it, which is more than most in this room will do for you tonight." "The gown, your own work?" The startled lift of her eyes told him he had guessed right. "The mending is—" "The gown was Lady Ashford's 2 seasons past. I took it in and altered the sleeve. There is no shame in a needle." "No," he agreed, "there is no shame in a needle. There is a great deal of shame in a woman who has the wealth to clothe her ward and chooses to clothe her in her own leavings so that she may feel taller by comparison. But that shame is not yours." He held her gaze. "It has never been yours. I think you know that. I think it is the only reason you are still standing upright in this room." For one moment Selina Marsh forgot to guard her face, and what he saw there, not gratitude, which he would have disliked, but a kind of astonished recognition, as though after years of being seen wrongly she had at last been seen exactly, struck the Duke of Thornemere somewhere under the iron, in a place he had believed sealed shut 3 winters deep. The music ended. He did not release her hand. "Walk with me," he said. "The gallery is quieter. And I find I have a great many questions, and no wish to shout them across a room full of people who will only mishear the answers and repeat them wrongly by morning." They walked the long gallery beneath the portraits of dead Thornemeres, and he asked his questions, and she answered them plainly, and the Duke, who forgave nothing, found that there was nothing in her to forgive. She had lost everything a person could lose: her home, her father, her name's good standing, the whole soft world of her childhood, and she had not turned bitter with it, and she had not turned to flattery, and she had not learned to be cruel to those below her the way the cruelly treated so often do. She had simply gone on being decent in a house that punished her for it. When he asked whether she did not hate the Ashfords, she considered the question honestly, which he liked, and said, "'Tis a great deal of work, Your Grace, and I have very little idle time." And he laughed. Actually laughed, the sound rusty and surprising in his own throat, for the first time since the winter of the funerals. It was in the gallery that Lady Ashford found them. She came in a rustle of outrage with Miss Caroline in her wake, and 2 matrons summoned for witnesses, and she had clearly rehearsed her scene on the walk. Selina. Selina, come away from his grace at once. I am mortified, your grace, that the girl should presume. She is not. She does not understand her place. We took her in from nothing, from a bankrupt's deathbed, out of pure Christian charity, and this is how she— Madam. The single word stopped her as a hand stops a door. The Duke of Thornemere turned, and the temperature of the gallery seemed to drop, and Lady Ashford, who had faced down half the county and won, took an involuntary step back. You will not speak to Miss Marsh in that tone in my house. You will not, in point of fact, speak to Miss Marsh in that tone anywhere I may hear of it, which, as I intend to hear of a great deal concerning Miss Marsh from this night forward, will be more or less everywhere. The colour drained from Lady Ashford's powdered face. Your Grace, you cannot mean she is nobody. She is, said Ansel, the only person I have met in 9 years whom I have wished to know better. He looked at Selina, who had gone very still. You called her a charity, madam. You clothed her in your leavings and seated her below the salt and taught this whole county to laugh when she passes. And she came through that door tonight with her head up all the same, which is a species of courage you have never once been asked to summon in your comfortable life, and which I doubt very much you possess. He turned back to the matrons, to Miss Caroline frozen in her yellow silk, to the guests now crowding the gallery doors to see the great scene unfold. Hear me, all of you, and repeat it correctly for once. Miss Selina Marsh is under my protection from this hour. Any insult to her is an insult to the house of Thornemere. I trust I need not explain what that means to those who have troubled to learn my reputation. No one moved, no one breathed. Miss Caroline's fan hung forgotten. And in the ringing silence, the Duke of Thornemere turned his back on the whole assembled cream of the county, offered his arm to the girl in the mended grey gown, and said, only for her, in a voice gone suddenly and wholly gentle, "That was badly done of me, to speak for you over you, in your own quarrel. Forgive it. I have been alone so long I have forgotten how to do a kind thing quietly." He searched her face. "But I meant every word, Selina Marsh, not to shame them, to free you. You need never keep to the edges of any room again as long as you live. If you will allow me, I should like to spend a great many years making certain of it." She looked up at him. The whispers had not stopped. They never would entirely. But he watched them cease to have any power over her, watched the last of the braced for cruelty armor come down at last, and what was underneath was not a wounded bird and never had been. It was a woman who knew her own worth and had simply been waiting, with her chin up, for a single soul in all the world to know it too. "You do not even know me," she said, but she was smiling now and her hand had already found his sleeve. "I know that everyone in this room was wrong about you," said the Duke of Thornemere, "and that I intend to be right. That will do to begin. The rest we shall learn together, and Miss Marsh, I have a very great deal of idle time to give to it. They were married before the leaves turned." It was said afterward, in the county that had once laughed when she passed, that the relentless Duke of Thornemere was gentled by no one and nothing, save the sight of his Duchess crossing a room, chin up, in silk of her own choosing at last, toward the only man who had ever asked, across a crowded and glittering dark, "Who is she?" and then spent the rest of his life making certain the whole world knew the answer.